Hello everyone, Professor Philip Travis, and this week in world history, we are going to be looking and reading about pre-Columbian America. Our readings for this week come from portions of chapter 5 and 6 that relate to particularly focusing on pre-Columbian America, and I'll talk about these photos in just a moment. We have an exam this week. We have our second test this week. Because there's a test this week, there's no discussion forum, so no discussion forum this week. Our paper, which was pushed to the end of this week in terms of its due date, what I'm going to do with that paper is I'm going to make that paper due on Wednesday of next week. So, of course, the assignment information was available in modules last week. It's available in modules this week, and it will be available in modules next week. But because we have an exam this week, give you a little bit extra time to work on it. And remember, when you're writing that paper, I want to see 3 academic sources. I have a little video tutorial guide from our library where I'm showing you the library website that will hopefully help in terms of doing a little bit of research for the paper. I want 3 academic sources. Your textbook can be one of them. And I want to see us making a specific historical point. So I don't want you to write a paper that kind of generally, just to use an example, generally summarizes all of the achievements of Athens, Greece. Instead, make a specific point. So if you were writing an essay about the ancient Greeks, for example, maybe you make a point that relates specifically to Greek democracy. And then find evidence that relates to Greek democracy, maybe the issue of tyranny and democracy that we were talking a little bit about when we covered that portion of the class, that subject area. And then you can find academic evidence that sort of supports the point that you're making. So make sure you make a specific point. If you're a history major, I strongly encourage us to use Chicago-style footnotes. All papers should have both citations in the text and also a bibliography page. If you're not a history major and you're more comfortable with using like a parenthetical style citation, I'm okay with that because of this is a survey level course. But if you're seeking a history degree, you want to pursue a history major or a related field, please use Chicago style footnotes as well as the bibliography, because when you get to your upper division history courses, everything is Chicago style, so it's a very good idea to do as much practice with that as you can. So we'll make that due Wednesday of next week, so you have a little bit of time there, so you can focus on the exam, and then you can also be working on the paper. We don't feel like we have too many things to do. Okay, so pre-Columbian America. The photos that you're seeing here are photos that I took on one of my journeys in the world as a world historian. And these photos are from Cusco, Peru. And Cusco, Peru is, of course, oftentimes remembered as the capital of the Inca Empire, which is true, or which was true. But Cusco is a much, much older historical site than just the Incas. A lot of us don't understand that the Inca Empire existed for a couple of centuries before it collapsed following the arrival of the conquistadors led by Francisco Pizarro in the beginning of the 16th century. But the site of Cusco is an ancient site that goes far further back than the Incas. The ancestors of the Incas built the sites that you're looking at. So what you're looking at here, these are the ruins of a high mountain fortress, for lack of a better way of describing it, built by the ancestors of the Incas. This site is known as Sacsayhuaman, and it's associated, and it's one of the real fascinations of sort of ancient archaeology, because it is very impressive in terms of the tolerances for the stones, how the stones are crafted, cut, and placed together. And the site is very large. And this is the overview of the site. Looking down on the Peruvian city of Cusco, which is one of the largest high mountain cities in the world. I believe it's eighth or ninth in terms of its elevation. The elevation of the city of Cusco is over 11,000 feet. When you travel there, it's very important to acclimate a little bit before you try to go out and do the things that you might do um, at a regular elevation, or at a lower elevation, I should say, because altitude and elevation very much affects you. And if you've never experienced that, when you travel to these places, make sure you have enough time to give yourself a few days at least to acclimate. But this city is roughly 400,000. It's very much it's very much a Native American city, while it is influenced, of course, by the Spanish, who ultimately conquered and colonized the place that comes to be known as Peru, the country of Peru, and of course also this city. This city very much has very strong Native American connections, and above it sits this high mountain fortress built by the ancestors of the Inca. And that takes us to the factoid for this week. The factoid for this week is pre-Columbian America is interesting for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is that actually, even though we associate pyramid building and the practice of mummification, we associate that usually with ancient Egypt. The reality is that in ancient Peru, the practice of mummification and the building of pyramids actually went back to almost a similar time period as those developments in ancient Egypt. In ancient Peru, Corral culture, as it's sometimes called, is known to have built pyramids at roughly around 2500 BCE, which again, very similar dating to the building of the Great Pyramids of Egypt. And of course, the practice of mummification was begun in Peru around a similar time period. And mummification became a very, very, very important part of Peruvian culture and society and religious practice, which the Spanish, when they conquered Peru in the beginning of the 16th century, went to great lengths to destroy that culture and those practices. So pre-Columbian America this week. No discussion forum because it's an exam this week. We have our exam. It's due us Sunday as usual. Please use the study guide. I'll have the exam posted for everyone to start thinking about taking by Tuesday at midnight. Make sure once you open the test, you must take it. And of course, our paper will have due Wednesday of the following week. Factoid posted in the extra credit discussion board. The factoid for this week is ancient pre-Columbian America. A site in places like pre-Columbian Peru, the ancestors of groups like the Inca were some of the first cultures to build pyramids and were, in many cases, contemporaries of ancient Egypt when it came to mummification practices as well as to period development. And here, of course, we're looking at some pictures that I took on one of my trips to the region of some of the ruins of one of the most impressive archaeological sites in the world, really, and of course in pre-Columbian America. And so you can look at this and kind of see the impressive engineering capabilities of these ancient societies. Let's have a great week. Let me know if you have any questions on the test. And I look forward to seeing your factoid in the discussion forum.